Oompa loompa doompa-dee-doo. I've got another puzzle for you. Oompa loompa doompa. Why don't you try simply reading a book? Or could you just not bear to look? You get no commercials.
My mom is a vegetarian, and now I just feel like I want to join her and not eat meat anymore.
As you can see, it impacted on me pretty profoundly. It's hard to kind of conceive how people still deny and wish to remain ignorant.
I mean, there's just something undeniable about being there with the animals, and yeah, it's really affecting and undeniable.
What we've developed is a groundbreaking experience that takes you out of your body and turns you into an animal.
It's really upsetting to witness firsthand, because you actually feel like, well, you are actually in.
Or could you just not bear to look?
What do you get from a glut of TV?
A pain in the neck and an IQ of 3.
I read a quote where you were discussing people's food choices and how that's connected maybe to their spirituality.
The answer to that comes from within you, and you have to do what feels right, what corresponds to your state of consciousness at any time.
Would you consider yourself spiritual?
Yes.
Yeah? So you still consume dairy and eggs as well?
I don't consume eggs, I do consume dairy. Yeah.
Okay.
It's just one of those days when you don't want to wake up. You don't really know why, but you want to justify ripping someone's head off.
But when you see me do this, it's my spirit.
Now, what does spirituality mean to you?
I would not only consider myself as spiritual, but everything in the world, all the living beings, humans and all the animals, everything that has life is spiritual.
Okay.
So spirituality to me means, that iota, having that inkling of God in you.
Okay.
And all the, creatures have that.
Like your inner self.
In a cell?
Yeah, definitely on a different level with the universe, how you connect.
How you connect?
Yeah.
There's a beautiful quote by Stephen Covey. He says, "We're not human beings having spiritual experience. We are spiritual beings undergoing a human experience."
Wow, that's powerful.
Yeah.
That's powerful.
It's about like what you feel within your heart and following your heart.
So you believe in concept of karma and things like that, yeah?
Yes.
Karma, you believe in concept of karma and
Definitely.
stuff? Karma. Okay.
Yeah, like Newton's third law of motion.
Okay.
To every action, there's a reaction.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
Would you say that contributing to the least amount of suffering to other earthlings would be considered spiritual as well, yeah? Okay. Are you vegetarian?
I have been a vegetarian all my life.
If you're vegetarian, that's wonderful.
Spiritual.
Sometimes when I buy some food, I imagine that this is going into my body and then the body either opens up to it or closes down.
That's right.
Do you know that the dairy industry is the veal industry? So by drinking dairy, you contribute to the veal industry, so the babies that get killed. So it's the same sort of thing. They both work hand in hand. Yes?
I think everyone was spiritual.
Awesome, awesome.
Despite your diet.
Okay, we've got a 1-minute video we're showing people. Would you like to watch it?
Definitely.
Okay, this is all filmed in Australia.
That's why I'm vegan.
You're vegan?
Yes.
That's a gas chamber.
I could never hurt an animal like that myself, so why would I be involved?
These are standard Australian practices. That's a lamb. Eat lamb?
Yeah, I do. Not gonna lie.
Eat eggs? They're baby chicks.
I am the star, so wait.
Okay, so do you think you can still be spiritual while contributing to and consuming that kind of suffering and fear?
Well, when you think about it, not everyone is aware of what goes on.
Okay.
Children, you know, they're innocent, they're not aware that that even exists. And then you've got people who shut it out, who don't want to see it. So I think there's a lot of dimensions you've got to consider before you go and judge the aspect of spirituality.
Okay. So now that you're aware of what happens in the Australian meat and dairy industry, would you still continue to contribute to it?
It's a huge decision. It's not contributing to it, I would say.
You'd stop contributing to it?
No, that's not what I'm saying. I think you're twisting my words there a little bit. So I was a bit uneducated on it, so you've just given me a good insight to it. But yeah, a bit confronting.
Yeah. Do you realise by buying these products you support that industry, or?
No, because I didn't even think of that before.
Supply and demand, so we pay the workers to do that, so
yeah.
Something to think about anyway.
It is something to think about, thank you.
And you're vegan?
Yes.
Legend. Alright, cool.
But today you're gonna yell. So if you do bad, I'm gonna let you know.
eat or what they want to eat.
Excuse me, mate.
What they want to eat?
No, excuse me, buddy.
If you're leaving a stretcher, keep going.
You're gonna assault me. Hey, I never attacked her.
You manipulated her words and manipulated her questioning. Asked her about spirituality. It's got nothing to do with people's eating choices. How dare you? Who do you think you are? Who do you think you are?
Do you want me to explain myself? Or
No,
I
you
just
can
walk
leave.
away?
Walk away.
You don't have to threaten me, mate.
Well, leave.
I'm not leaving.
It's my daughter.
I'm allowed to be here. You can leave.
Huh? Really?
I'm allowed to
You
be
leave on
here.
a stretcher, mate. Don't manipulate young girls with your pointed questions, mate. If people want to cut lambs' heads off and wear them as headdresses, they will.
Oh, really?
Yes.
So you're defending your right to be cruel to animals?
No, not at all.
That's what you're saying?
We're not talking about that. We're talking about what you did.
I'm showing people animal slaughter footage. Do you want to see it?
But you're not just showing them. You're not just showing them. You're getting them on camera, and then you're twisting my words.
I asked you first. I asked for your
No,
permission.
you asked me to talk about spirituality. You didn't ask me to talk about a diet.
Yes, of course you
You
are.
are manipulating. You manipulate me on camera.
How?
You asked me to talk about spirituality. You didn't ask me to talk about meat. You got it? Now I told you. No, you even started.
No, you're the joke.
It's sad. You're so going to cry.
Yeah.
You're going about it the wrong way.
That's right.
Be honest with people. If you want to talk to people about animal
I'll
cruelty,
talk about-
start with that. It's got nothing to do with spirituality.
That's right.
Okay.
You know what?
Would you have accepted if I said that?
I actually would have, and I would have been much more careful with my words, and I also would have watched that video with a bit more sympathy and asked you a bit more about it, because I'm actually interested in it, but I'm not interested for you to draw the line between that and spirituality at all. That is rude, and if you were religious,
there is truth to it though.
You want to show you how to yell?
You guys are running this fair.
And manipulate someone else's religion, you don't do it this way. It's not accepted.
Lambs being slaughtered. It's not right. They don't belong here. I'm a Reiki master. We do spiritual work for 25 years. These guys don't belong here. End of story. That's where this fair's going down the fucking toilet.
It's just wrong. They've got footage of me on camera. They asked me to talk about spirituality, and they've got footage of me talking about meat and how I eat it and how it's wrong.
Shut up. Yeah, maybe let's cut with the interviews and everything in here.
Maybe you should leave, because they make it really uncomfortable.
You can watch it if you want, right? And you can see how what I asked her. I wasn't being rude or anything.
Nothing to do with spirituality.
It's got everything. It's got everything to do with it. How can you be spiritual and be pro-animal cruelty?
It's not about. We're not pro-animal cruelty.
If you want to have a genuine conversation about it, mate, we can.
To do with you, because where you vibrate is so low. You are standing now.
You're threatening me, dude.
You're a bottom feeder.
Dude, you're threatening me.
It's my daughter.
No.
Oh, you live from you moron.
This is enough.
Pull your arms up and shove them up your fucking nose. Seriously.
Did you film with it? Good.
So he said condescendingly, so you're eating dead bird soup.
Half the world isn't ready for this yeah,
but that's the job, isn't it? That's your job.
It's a tough job. I'm willing to get knocked out for it if I have to.
Oompa, loompa, doompa dee da. If you're not greedy, you will go far.
Okay, so we're out in the public today just speaking to some people who are watching footage from slaughterhouses and about the treatment that humans have to animals and the planet. And we're just getting some reactions from members of the public to see what they think about the use of animals and whether they have the products in their diet and whether they know what it does to the planet and what it does to them. What have you guys just seen?
Like animals getting really hurt.
How does that make you feel?
Sick.
And what are they getting hurt for?
For us? Like for us.
Okay. And do you guys eat animals? Do you have animal products in your diet?
Yeah.
Do you guys drink things like milk?
Uh-huh.
Do you know what happens to humans if they stop eating animal products?
They die.
They die. Do you drink milk?
Yes.
Okay, how old are you if you don't mind me asking?
21.
What kind of things do you eat?
I eat everything.
Okay, so do you drink milk?
Yes, I do.
So you guys are 13 and 12 and you're still breastfeeding.
Wait, what?
Wait, what? Is that?
You're still breastfeeding, yeah?
No, I get the milk from the cows. No,
but that's milk, that's food from the breast of a cow.
Yeah.
You're feeding from the breast.
Yeah, so yeah, technically I'm breastfeeding.
How does that make you feel thinking about it in that way?
Right.
What the hell?
That's just like, no, I don't want to drink milk.
No?
Because I drink milk anymore.
It's sucking on a cow's nipple.
Well, it's exactly that, isn't it? So do you not think it's a little bit weird that you're still 21 and still breastfeeding, still drinking breast milk? So do you not think it's a little bit weird that at the age of 33 you're still having breast milk?
No, I don't.
Why not?
Because milk is something that cows can produce.
How old are you guys, if you don't mind me asking?
I'm 17.
16. 13. 15.
So, is it not a bit weird? Did you say that you drink milk, yeah?
No.
Is it not a bit weird that you're 17 and still breastfeeding? No?
Mm-hmm.
No?
Oh my God.
Is that totally normal?
Yeah, a little bit.
Yeah?
When you put it like that, yeah.
So, why is it only weird when you put it like that?
Because you don't think of it as
Why
breast
not?
milk, because you just see it in the carton. You don't see what actually happens.
So, if you see food in a carton, you don't think about what it is. Just as long as it tastes nice, you'll eat it.
Yes.
I don't eat any animal products at all. Neither does Kaylin, neither do any of the people here. I'm not dead.
So, you don't die then?
So, if you don't need to eat animals to survive, if you don't need to drink milk to survive, and it's a little bit weird, why do we still do it?
I don't know.
Milk is something that cows can produce, and they need.
Why do cows produce it?
Cows produce it because actually, if you don't actually milk them, they actually have a problem. They do need to be milked.
What would normally cause them to be milked in nature?
Well, they on constant breastfeeding, and they milk and they produce milk, and it's taken away.
What do they produce the milk for?
So can I get your immediate reaction to the footage that you saw?
I was disgusted. I was appalled. I mean, I'm a meat eater. I've been a meat eater all my life, and to see animals treated like that for corporations, it's disgusting. I mean, the cruelty, the sheer cruelty it's immeasurable.
Right.
So.
Did that kind of make you think twice about your diet?
Yes. Today I was on my way to get a beef burrito. Now, I don't know.
No?
Probably not today.
Right. What makes you think that you need to eat animal products?
That goes back to my childhood. I mean, everybody ate meat. There was always meat on the table.
Yeah.
It was just the norm. But honestly, I think we're vegetarians by genetics, by nature.
Absolutely, yeah.
We're not meant to eat animals. Certainly not dairy.
No.
That's only been the last few thousand years.
Do those calves ever drink their milk, or do we? Do you know what happens?
I would like to know that. I would like to think that the calves also drink the milk.
That doesn't happen, because if the calves drank the milk, we wouldn't have any access to that.
Is there not excess?
Only if we force excess.
Is it force, or have they naturally been breeded so
in
that
order
they can produce an excess?
In order for the cows to be producing milk, we need to inseminate them, which is technically classed as a form of rape, because they don't give permission for us to make them pregnant.
Oh, well, I thought that these are cows which produce a natural excess.
Yeah.
How old are you guys, if you don't mind me asking?
I'm 13. So,
Okay, so do you think it's a little bit weird that you guys are 13 and still having breast milk?
yeah, that sounds weird, yeah.
Why does it sound weird?
I don't know, because it's like only supposed to be babies that get that.
Not 13-year-olds?
No.
So why do you guys drink it?
I don't know. I just we just grew up with it.
Okay, so if you grow up with something, does that mean that it's normal?
No.
So do you guys think you'll keep drinking milk?
No, definitely not. No, that was very good.
Does that not scare you a little bit, that someone could put anything in a carton and as long as it tastes nice, you'll eat it?
Yeah.
So now that I've said that to you guys, do you think you're just going to continue breastfeeding, or do you think you'll think about it?
No, I'm not sure. Think about it.
No, I don't want to breastfeed.
Because there's so many other forms of milk you can drink. Almond milk, soy milk. I don't drink cow's milk. I was the same. I breastfed until I was about 18, and I wasn't aware. Now that I've seen it in that light, I don't want to touch this stuff. It's horrible.
You will live in happiness too, like the
circle of life. Delicious.
This is definitely humane. I can sleep well.
I want them tested.
The privilege to use laboratory animals.
So why do I care so much about language use? Well, according to Foucault, language is a powerful tool. Through discourse, power structures are produced and reinforced, but they can also be exposed and undermined. So that's vitally important for us vegans. We look through the window to gather information about the outside world, but really do we look at the window pane itself and think about how it could be distorting our view? And when you do this in a dialogue with a non-vegan, then the value and belief systems of vegans and the non-vegans are both exposed and denaturalized, and the idea is that this invites introspection. With that in mind, I was reading through this book the other day. This is The Exciting Life That I Lead. But what it has to say about some of the language used by hunters is quite interesting. A sportsman who shoot duck, partridge, pheasant, etc. use the same form for singular and plural, but other people normally add s for the plural. So why is this important? Well, whereas most people would say, oh look, there are some ducks over there, talking about individual beings, a hunter would say, there are some duck over there. By abjuring the plural form, they semantically deny the ducks their individuality, their personhood. It seems clear that these hunters cannot bear to think of these animals as individual beings and have undergone such a degree of cognitive dissonance that this denial has manifested itself in their very grammar. I see the use of this singular form as being akin to a mantra, a way for the hunters to continuously reaffirm their worldview. Another particularly interesting bit of language use is the use of the word game. If an animal is a game animal, then it has a set purpose. Who else is propagating myths about hunting? Who benefits from hunting? Didn't take very long for me to come to a pretty important realization. I mean, what's arguably the most important bit of kit that every hunter has? I'm talking, of course, about guns. So this train of thought led me to the National Rifle Association, which is an extremely influential conservative lobby group, styling itself as the #1 organization for hunters in America. unsurprising given the fact that it receives about half of its funding from gun manufacturers. But it is also a grassroots organisation with millions of members, many of whom are primarily concerned with protecting what they see as their constitutional rights as afforded to them by the famous Second Amendment. However, they do recognise hunting, or many of them recognise hunting, as being an important fallback position for their gun ownership agenda, which draws sympathies from a broader political spectrum than their beliefs otherwise would. So for this reason, the NRA is one of the most powerful pro-hunting interest groups, and they do a lot of work to promote hunting. But probably not quite as much as this next organisation, the National Shooting Sports Federation, which is the chief trade association for US gun manufacturers. And happily, they also have a YouTube channel. And that's where I came across this surprising bit of information. Let's watch.
You know, if you're an experienced hunter, I'm sure you've learned a lot about the game species you hunt, whether it's elk up in the high country or bobwhite quail down in the southern lowlands. But there are more than a few veteran hunters I've met who aren't that familiar with the other side of hunting, the role that hunters play in conserving America's natural resources. Over 100 years ago, it was hunters who first saw the need and then laid the groundwork for wildlife and habitat conservation efforts that have restored to abundance many native species, from white-tailed deer and wild turkey, as well as many non-game species. Today, hunters continue as the major contributors to wildlife conservation, providing more than $1 billion annually to conservation efforts. As a hunter, you should be aware of the contributions you make to conservation and take great pride in what you have helped to accomplish.
That was pretty horrifying, right? Could this trade association for gun manufacturers actually have a point, despite their obvious bias? Could hunting be necessary for conservation? I had to do more research. So I found out that hunting directly contributes to conservation in three main ways. Firstly, through the Pittman-Robertson Act. Secondly, through the sale of duck stamps. And thirdly, through the sale of hunting licenses. So the Pittman-Robertson Act constitutes a 10 to 11% excise tax levied on the sales of guns and ammunition, the proceeds of which then go to state wildlife management organizations. And since its inception, this act has raised over $8 billion. So duck stamps are not functional stamps, they're basically a token that let you go out and shoot migratory waterfowl, the sales of which have generated an additional $1 billion. Finally, the sale of hunting licenses themselves provide $796 million annually for wildlife management. I mean, it's pretty hard to argue with those figures. It would seem that, as strange as it sounds, hunting contributes a lot to wildlife conservation. How sad is that? That the only way to protect wilderness areas and the wildlife that inhabits them is to allow them to be the unwitting participants in blood sport for human entertainment. I got you. I'm totally kidding. You were so... you believed it, didn't you? You were going to go out and buy a gun? No. Don't worry about it. I was just kidding before. All those facts and figures, they may sound impressive, but they're just half-truths. Spun by an industry. You know, they want you to buy guns, they want you to shoot things. Let's not. So let's look at exactly how they're lying. Where to start? Okay, let's start at the top. The Pittman-Robertson Act. $8 billion raised since its inception. Sounds massively impressive, right? Until you learn that its inception happened all the way back in 1937, 79 years ago. So if you divide $8 billion by 79 years, you get an average of just over 100 million raised per year, which is a lot less impressive. And then there's the fact that the Act technically hasn't raised any money at all. You can't make this stuff up. I mean, there already existed a 10% excise tax on arms and ammunition. The Act didn't change that at all, it didn't raise any extra money. It just made it so the state was obliged to reinvest that money into state wildlife management organizations. More on that later. Okay, very quickly, duck stamps, or more officially, the Migratory Bird Hunting and Conservation Stamp Act. Again, $1 billion raised is very impressive. Again, this is the figure that refers to funds raised since this Act's inception. Its inception happened all the way back in 1934, that's 82 years ago, which averages out at just over $12 million per year. Again, far less impressive. Okay, let's leave hunting license revenues till last and move on to the US Fish and Wildlife Service's statement that the sale of hunting licenses, tags and stamps is the primary source of funding for most state wildlife conservation efforts. Hard to argue with that, right? Well, we've got a few key caveats to look out for here. The first being primary. So if it's the primary source, then by no means is it the only source. Then most efforts, so it's not the primary source for all conservation efforts. And finally, and perhaps most importantly, state wildlife conservation efforts. This is significant because it discounts the massive amount of wildlife conservation funding that comes from federal sources. For example, the Federal National Park Service 2016 budget was $2.5 billion, and the federal US Fish and Wildlife Service's 2016 budget is just shy of $3 billion. So the budget from these two agencies alone equates to $5.5 billion, massively dwarfing any of the figures we're talking about here. Okay, but at a state level, most still means quite a lot, right? I mean, that one source was pretty specific about the 80 to 90% of the budget of the Wildlife Division of the Alaska Department of Fish and Game coming from the Pittman-Robertson program. And yes, this source was very specific in singling out this one department from the wildlife management organization of this single state. At this juncture, it's probably important for us to look at how the funds from the Pittman-Robertson Act are distributed. You see, the funds are distributed by the Secretary of the Interior based on some key criteria. Those criteria being the landmass of the state and the per capita percentage of license holders. This is probably a good time to point out that Alaska is huge. It's over twice the size of the next biggest state, Texas, and over 100 times larger than some of the smallest states. Conversely, it has a very small population of just over 700,000 people, but the per capita percentage of hunting license holders is huge, with just over 100,000 resident sales in 2014. That's a massive 1 in 7 people owning a hunting license. Compare that to California, where 278,000 resident licenses were sold in the same year, but amongst a population of around 39 million, that equates to roughly just 1 in 140 people. So you begin to see now why the funding level for this single department in this single very unique state's wildlife management organization is not representative of the Pittman-Robertson Act's contribution to wildlife conservation efforts nationwide. And finally we come to it. The revenue from hunting license sales. $796 million per year is certainly nothing to be sniffed at. But does this equate to $796 million per year for conservation? Not even close. Okay, so first of all, 8% of the funds are deducted by the Department of the Interior for administration costs. That's $63 million, just for admin. Which still leaves $732 million, from which the state deducts a further 3% for their admin. That's another $20 million gone. But that still leaves about $710 million. And of this amount, a full 50%, $355 million, is then set aside to pay for hunter safety programs. $355 million for hunting safety programs? What exactly does that cost entail? Well, largely it entails the cost of building and maintaining shooting ranges. Indeed, this has resulted in a situation where in many states, very aggressive range building programs are ongoing. Are you beginning to see why the hunting industry is the darling child of the gun manufacturing industry? I'm sure it will come as little surprise to you at this point that it was the gun manufacturers themselves who pushed for the Pittman-Robertson Act's creation in the first place. Why would they do that? Why would they instigate an excise tax? That means, a tax the industry, they themselves have to pay. Well, because of all the reasons we've just examined, arms manufacturers can expect to get significant returns on their investment for this excise tax. What kind of returns, you ask? 10%? 20? 30? In constant dollars, the estimated return on investment to manufacturers who paid the excise tax ranged between a low of 823% in 1976 to a high of 1,588% in '97. Okay, so the gun manufacturers are the real benefactors from these acts. Does that surprise us? Come on, this is America. But at least some money goes to conservation, right? There's the $355 million still left, that 50% from hunting license revenues. There's the $100 million from the excise tax, the Pittman-Robertson Act. There's the $12 million from duck stamps. That's still a lot. I mean, you divide that up between the 50 states, that's over $9 million every year for state wildlife management organizations. I mean, sure, it's nowhere near the multi-billion-dollar figure often cited by hunting advocacy groups, but it's better than nothing, right? And it's important to note that this is only the money that goes directly to the state wildlife management organizations. Doesn't account for the money that hunters contribute directly to the economy, huh? And this is another reason why, you know, these multi-billion-dollar figures are often cited. For example, this National Shooting Sports Federation infographic attributes $38 billion of spending to hunters in 2011. Has anybody got any salt? You see, this figure seems to account for literally everything from guns and ammunition to seeds and vehicles and the shirt on their back, literally. Indeed, the NSSF thought it prudent to only include the kind of things that half of that spending figure is in reference to. So presumably the list gets even more absurd. You know, utility bills, trips to the circus, medical costs associated with ingesting lead. But even so, these figures must be pretty impressive, right? I mean, when we're talking in billions of dollars generated for the national economy, that's noteworthy, right? Yes, but again, the industry is distorting the truth. I mean, they're just referring to the cost, essentially, of a human, or the millions of humans, the hunters, going on a trip and owning a gun. And this is where the pro-hunting argument for conservation or economic reasons really does fall flat. I mean, there's nothing inherent in the act of shooting an animal, or there's very little inherent in the act of shooting an animal that actually generates income. The vast majority of the funds generated would have been generated anyway, even if the hunter had just walked through the woods, observed the animals, you know, photographed them maybe, and then gone to a local shooting range, many of which have been built by these funds, to, you know, squeeze off a few rounds into a paper target. To further demonstrate this point, let's take a look at the figures of the income generated by hunters versus non-violent wildlife tourists. And let's be generous, let's do what the gun manufacturers want us to do and look at the figures from the state of Alaska, a very hunting-biased state. As you can see, even here in Alaska, the economic benefit provided by hunters, and remember, most of that isn't generated by the act of hunting itself, is far outstripped by that of non-hunters. So let's imagine that hunting were banned. Can we expect this little red section of economic contribution to just poof, disappear? Heck no, these hunters are supposedly great lovers of the outdoors. Are we to assume that they're never going to step foot in the woods again out of spite? Of course not. They continue contributing money to the local economy, and their money, perhaps to a slightly less degree, but their money would be clean. Indeed, they wouldn't even stop buying guns and ammunition. I mean, these are firearm enthusiasts, you know, they just go to the range. And, you know, if they're shooting targets at a range, they probably go through more ammunition that way anyway. So the actual economic losses resulting from a hunting ban would actually probably be minimal. In fact, is it crazy to assume that it might actually benefit the local economies? I mean, think about it. How many more people, especially families, would be more inclined to visit these wilderness areas now, knowing that there's no chance of them getting killed or maimed by a stray bullet? Approximately 1,000 hunting-related shooting accidents are recorded each year in the US, and although hunters are usually the victims, I'm guessing due to the fact that they're out there in close proximity in full camo gear, non-hunters do get killed too. Indeed, is there any other recreational activity where you can get killed even if you don't take part? You've still got that $9 million every year for each state wildlife organization. I mean, you know, that's a lot of money for conservation. What do you say about that? We shouldn't even be talking about wildlife conservation. You see, you can debate all day the semantics between game and wildlife, but it overlooks the truly important semantic aspect of these agencies' role, and that is the difference between wildlife management and wildlife conservation. And it's a crucial difference indeed, my friend. In the one breath, pro-hunting advocates want to assure us that the preservation of these wilderness areas benefits non-game species too. But in the next, they're assuring hunters that the name change from California Fish and Game to Fish and Wildlife needn't worry them, as there are enough protections built into state law to prevent the money raised through hunting and fishing licenses from being siphoned off for other needs. They actively shape and change the land, making it more suited for these game species, and incidentally, less well suited for some non-game species, including many endangered species. You see, deer thrive on so-called new growth conditions. They like to basically eat young shoots, which, you know, obviously is great for the deer population, but it's not so great for the species that used to live in the trees. Indeed, Norse points out that whilst after a few years these clear-cut habitats may be home to more species, these are species which are abundant elsewhere, whereas the rarer at-risk species often rely on mature and ancient forest in order to thrive. So open glade areas are also really good for deer population, but nature takes its course, you know. When the light is now shining on the forest floor, bracken starts to grow, which would be great for small birds and mammals, but not so great for deer. So what the management agency then does is they go back and they spray broad spectrum herbicide on the ground. I'm talking about glyphosate, remember that, and diclofenac, which this paper is quick to point out, you know, it's only toxic to aquatic life. Good thing forests aren't part of the natural water table, eh? So whether through the application of toxic herbicides or through the clearing of mature forest habitats in order to stimulate new growth for game species, wildlife management is not only not equivalent to wildlife conservation, but it actually undermines conservation efforts.
I hope that we've been able to pull some truth out of the emotion in this debate, and I hope we've all learned something. I know I have. Thanks, everybody. This program has not attempted to convince anyone that they should hunt or that they should not. But we do hope that if you find yourself in your own debate about hunting, you'll now be able to tell who is dealing with the facts and who is not.
Okay, I need a signature sign-off. Alright guys, thank you for watching Veganism Unspun, and trust nobody. Maybe too much. Alright guys, thanks for watching Veganism Unspun. That's not even a thing. Keep making those vegan gains? No, this doesn't work unless you go to the gym. I support gay marriage. It's been done. And keep following the money.
Like the